$6 billion in taxpayer money is spent to provide housing for needy Americans. At least that's how much is allotted for public housing. Where some of that money actually goes may unfortunately be another question. At least 43 local housing officials were convicted of crimes in the last 2 years, and some of the allegations are shocking. Tonight, Brian Ross is here with his investigation. Brian?
Cynthia, our Nightline investigation, conducted with the Center for Public Integrity, found that the federal housing program is plagued by theft and corruption and incompetence at local levels, spending millions of dollars on housing for sex offenders and dead people, and all too often failing the 3 million families who rely on federal housing for a clean, safe place to live. Officials in Washington have long praised the way the Philadelphia Housing Authority operates, apparently unaware or unconcerned that its executive director, Carl Green, was spending lavishly on parties, belly dancers and all, and used more than $500,000 in Housing Authority money to secretly settle a series of claims by female employees, with his own board later concluding Green was a true serial sexual harasser.
He asked them to dinner, drinks, under the guise of doing business. When he was rebuffed, they would then be isolated.
But that was hardly the worst of Mr. Green's legacy. The same month as his belly dancer party, 12-year-old Ebony Gage suffered a near-fatal asthma attack, brought on after her mother says poorly trained Housing Authority inspectors failed to properly check for dangerous black mold in her subsidized housing.
Nobody cared.
Years of unrepaired water leaks, she says, turned her home into a toxic pit full of the asthma-causing mold.
They ignored everything I said to them.
Ebony may never walk or talk again, and while the Housing Authority denied any wrongdoing or responsibility, it settled out of court for $9.6 million.
You go from looking at your 12-year-old dancing and talking, and to the next day, you got a trach, a feeding tube, and you can't ever say anything.
Last fall, after a series of newspaper exposés on Green's mismanagement, wasteful spending, and personal financial trouble, Green was forced out of his $300,000 a year job that had made him a man about town, running the country's 4th largest public housing authority. Green would not talk with us, but his lawyer says the belly dancers were part of a diversity program. Green told our station in Philadelphia his problems were not connected to his job performance.
I just want to assure everyone that this is really no bearing on the stewardship and management at PHA.
But now the FBI is investigating the Housing Authority, and prosecutors have issued a range of subpoenas.
We expect that the agency in Washington, D.C. ought to be making sure that every taxpayer dollar is spent in a responsible way.
Yet top officials in Washington at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, continue to praise Green's accomplishments.
I would say the Philadelphia Housing Authority did a good job.
Sandy Enriquez, the Assistant Secretary of Housing, says the focus on Carl Green overshadows a lot of good work, including several revitalized projects she recently toured in Philadelphia.
I just find it amazing that, the before and after.
But Enriquez was unaware of the case of Ebony Gage, or the $9.6 million payment because of the alleged failure of the Housing Authority to keep Ebony's home safe. What about Ebony Gage?
That's a name that's not familiar to me.
She was 12 years old when she had an asthma attack, near fatal brain damage.
And which housing authority is this?
In Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia.
Enriquez finally acknowledged there might have been a problem in Philadelphia in Ebony's case, but maintained that overall, HUD is keeping a close eye on the country's low-income housing authorities.
And I think a vast majority of housing authorities across this nation are doing a good job.
But our investigation uncovered a wide range of serious problems across the country. The Department of Housing Inspector General discovered that one top local official used taxpayer money to buy this $1 million mansion in Florida, with his Mercedes and Lamborghini parked in front. All the property of Elias Castellanos, Chief Financial Officer for the New Orleans Housing Authority, convicted of embezzlement and sent to prison. One of at least 43 housing officials across the country we found convicted of crimes over the last